I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry, Secretary, and I'm also one of the representatives for Regional Student Advisory Council, and finally, I'm a captain of the swim team.
Great. Well, welcome.
These are pictures from Ms. Shea's and Ms. Carr's class at Downey, and then Ms. Cronin's class, who were basically doing book tasting at the beginning. And am so incredibly happy and thrilled that she stepped up into this role right now, and just want to welcome you to the district and just have you say a couple of words, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening.
She's a little humble in her background, but want to share that we are happy to have her wealth of experience joining us here in the district. So, move forward with the agenda, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm excited to follow up on our conversations and teachers and family members and students and even a community member to come together really in this conversation, talk about, I know a couple of committee members, I should mention that as well, to have this conversation about what do we want for our students when they leave our doors. Conveyed the messages of what we were trying to talk about with the Portrait of a Graduate, but was also visually appealing and attractive. And I am thrilled that we had a group of students work with the team. So, dear administration, faculty, and whoever else might be listening or reading this, welcome back to school. We know you're so excited to be back. And I will say they're parenthetical. You can individually determine the level of sarcasm in learners. And then our task was to turn these competencies into some sort of a visual. The visual needed to be modern and visually appealing, yet informative, but not in a corporate way. I'd like a question along the lines of, what symbols do you associate with your time at WPS? Slides, backpacks, and school supplies were all shared, with each of us creating individual sketches. The one that stood crayon for think critically and creatively because you start with the crayons as a kid. They are a part of your continuous learning path, and you learn to be deliberate with its placement. They're also fun and colorful, key parts of creativity, especially in younger grades. They're the collaboration and compromise, while being open to new ideas, which is an important skill for all. The rest of the work came down to our individual strengths and any tweaks that were advised from group meetings. The colors are so incredibly proud. I get a little emotional about these things, right? I am so incredibly proud of the work that our
Well, I think I think you have captured months and months and months of work from dozens of people into this amazing.
I would just echo that. Yeah, I mean,
we've seen it.
We've seen it. Amazing, well done. Go class of 2026 and 25. Yeah. But well done. I also think it reflects the authentic, relevant learning experience.
That it was done by students and it's going to last for years to come. It's a really neat legacy. So thank you.
And I will say I did appreciate the part that we didn't hear about, or at least I didn't.
Really cool how I can see, not just sports, but in art as well. And I thought it was really impressive when I saw it.
And kudos to Amy, because I remember sitting there and you were looking at all this very thoughtfully, and then you were like, I have an idea.
All right, so let's talk about our strategic planning updates. So when we had met in June, and I've talked about the framing of our strategic plan before. Our strategic plan is broken into, those are the four areas, focal areas for the strategic plan. And then within these, there are 3 or 4 priorities in each focal area. And if you'll indulge me, I'll read the priorities. I'm not going to read every action step. It's a very lengthy document. I will show one example of what the action steps look like. But in terms of the priority under student voice and agency, we want to amplify student voice through student-centered classroom instruction. That's the example I'll show in a minute. We want to support a culture of student belonging through positive relationships with adults and peers. And we want to promote constructive school and community engagement through expanding structures and programming for students. Under authentic, relevant learning experiences, we want to ensure that all content areas include resources, figures, texts, and perspectives that represent the diversity of the human experience. We want to ensure that student learning experiences are authentically preparing them for life and work. And we want to ensure an ethical and responsible approach to technology used through effective instruction modeling. For rigorous, high-quality core instruction, we want to deepen our focus on critical thinking and problem solving both in and across content areas. We want to ensure alignment among our identified curriculum, instructional best practices, and student learning experiences. And we want to implement a system of targeted academic, social, emotional, and behavioral supports to meet the needs of all students. And then finally, for robust and healthy learning environments, we want to strengthen the student's experience and staff professional culture by developing formal feedback structures, communication plans, and implementation plans that engage students, staff, and families. We want to examine our relevant curriculum, programming, and structures to ensure proactive support for student mental health and wellness needs. We want to deepen a culture of database decision-making across schools in the district. And we want to engage the community to prioritize and then implement identified recommendations from our district facilities master plan. So again, I won't go into the action steps for all 13 of these. This will all be posted on our website. But just to show an example, this is strategic priority 1.1. This is about amplifying student voice through student-centered classrooms. So during the 25-26 school year, and you'll see that unlike some previous plans, this actually shows a timeline of the progression of things over multiple years. So in 25-26, we want to use classroom walkthroughs and peer observations to develop a unified understanding of what student-centered classrooms look like. And we want to communicate expectations to staff around the importance of student voice and student-centered instruction. You'll see the third action step there is about utilizing educator evaluation rubrics to support consistent implementation of those strategies. That is begins in 2026-27. If you recall our conversation about the WTA contract in the spring, and I want to thank the WTAs for being partners again and coming to a successful resolution in negotiations. But one of the provisions of that was we were going to create a working group to work on evaluation this year. So we can't begin that plan until we've done that work in 25-26. And then once we are in that system, once we're implementing those new rubrics in 27-28, we want to talk about highlighting exemplary practices for student-centered instruction and engagement and conducting peer observations to promote growth of best practices across classrooms. So that kind of provides a broad sense. Now, ultimately, this document is a document that is facing really, the audience is really the educational leaders in the community, educational leaders in the system, from the school committee to the folks in my office to principals, to basically provide the roadmap for how we work with teachers. There is also sort of broader audience in the community, so they have a sense of, with kind of broad strokes of what we're doing. But as an actionable document, this is not an actionable document for teachers, right? So we need to be able to convert this into language that we use with teachers and other educators for the work that they do each and every day. And so I shared this slide on opening day with staff, and it really shows the progression from our work in a portrait of a graduate, which are the skills and competencies we want to develop in our students, those 4 areas that we talked about communicate and collaborate, think critically and creatively, act with integrity, and engage locally and globally. That then leads to our district strategic plan, which provides the roadmap for the priorities and actions that support students in reaching those goals. And then our instructional focus, which are the focal areas for our work for instruction and our professional learning for staff, are how we make that come alive in our engagement with educators, teachers, and other educators for the work that they're doing for our continuous improvement as a district. And Caitlin will talk about this more in a minute when we talk about our professional development focus for the year. But the 2 things we are really leaning into for this year are student voice and agency and universal design for learning. I think student voice and agency is a little bit more self-explanatory. We just talked about that in the context of the portrait of graduate. Universal design for learning is really about how do we provide a system for thinking about curriculum and instruction that provides universal access points for all students to be able to access our curriculum in meaningful and rigorous ways. The analogy of that is that it's a very classic example in UDL design. The implementation of curb cuts on sidewalks were originally designed to help support people that may be moving through with wheelchairs, but it supports bicyclists and shopping carts and all these other things, right? That it was not necessarily designed for that, but it's really about universally designing and accessing. How do we take that same analog and bring it to the world of curriculum and instruction? So that is sort of the really high-level overview of the strategic plan. The committee obviously has the details of the plan in front of you. And I'm happy to pause here and sort of hear any comments, have any discussion, or just hear your feedback in this moment.
I'm just wondering, Tim, what do you expect for the cadence to check in to make sure that everything's kind of going according to plan? Is that an annual thing or?
Yeah, so in terms of publicly with a committee, I see that as an annual thing. Sort of as we approach the end of each year, and we've got to figure out exactly what the right timing of this, whether this is something that we do Sort of where and when we do that, that's a conversation. Internally, we need to hold ourselves on a more accountable, regular cadence, right? Because if you wait a year to kind of look and see what you're doing, you've waited too long. So when we met with our admin team last week, we talked about having regular quarterly check-ins to see where we are. And really, the advantage of having a 3-year plan is you have a roadmap for where you're going. One of the disadvantages is things change contextually. And so if we don't have those periodic regular check-in points and adjust course accordingly, then the plan doesn't become useful, right? So I do see this as a living, breathing document where we will revisit those action steps depending upon where we are with our progression to the plan and if it's driven in some other way by external or internal context.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kind of building on that, I fully appreciate and stand behind the work that went into this and the thought that went into this. As we get to year 3, do we throw this out and start again, or is there an iteration on this that builds on this? How do you think about, I'm thinking like philosophically, you've done this before in other districts. How do you think about the evolution of this and where we go in year 4 and year 5 and beyond, and how it relates to the portrait of the graduate that we built out for a 10-year plan? But how do you think about kind of starting again or building on what's working? What you're thinking?
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a time where there's just like a throw everything out and start all over again, right? It's
Right.
Our students, our staff, our families are continuous, right? And so there may be some things that naturally age out because we reach a level of completion with that particular priority. But like a priority that focuses on, student agency in the classroom, the action steps will look different because hopefully because we've done this work, we are in a different place 3 years from now than we are today. But I would be hard pressed to imagine that would be a focus that we'd be shifting away from, right? And so, we would engage in it may not be quite as robust of a community-based process 3 years from now or I guess 2.5 years from now, as we did this last year because we're jumping off from a different place. Because we will have a level of continuity at that point is the hope and expectation, right? But I think that really requires an authentic self-assessment of where we are at that point in time. So it's somewhere between, I'm processing my thoughts here as we're talking. It is hard to answer with specificity that question, obviously, because I don't know where we're going to be. But we want to identify what have we set out that we said we wanted to do that we have not yet completed, either because it can't be done in 3 years realistically and it's an ongoing thing, or because for some reason we haven't gotten there yet. And we want to make sure we continue those things as long as we still believe in them. And I'm hoping we do. There may be other things that, for example, if we had done this plan 3 years ago, AI would not have been on the table for consideration 3 years ago, right? And so you also want to be responsive to what the educational landscape is at that point in time.
Thank you.
So I think I was sort of seeing this as a document that isn't so much a 3-year look, but more of an annual look, and that we sort of would use this, okay, next year we revisit it, and you've been revisiting it all along throughout the year, I understand that, but all of a sudden it becomes 3 years from next year, and then 3 years, or as opposed to we're going to do this for the next 3 years and then stop and then do it again and then it's more of like a living, continuously updated document and action items, and things come off and things come on. And to that point, I guess in either instance, whether it's this 3-year thing or whether it's more of a continuously moving thing, I guess the question is, when do we see, when is the sort of the status communicated to us and consequently to the community in terms of what we have done, what we think we need to do, what has changed?
Yeah, and so that was, that ties in with Amanda's question from a minute ago, right?
Right.
So, that may be, and we can talk about the cadence of this, but that might be something that we do at the June meeting, right? As we assess what have we done during the course of this year. I've done things like essentially like street light coding, right? Green for things that we've completed, yellow for things that are in progress, red for things that we may not have started yet. I also want to talk about the coordination between district strategy and school improvement plans. Because this really is about setting the frame for the priorities that we have at the district level. School improvement plans are annual plans. And so some of these things are district priorities, but some of these things at the school level will be updated on an annual basis through the school improvement planning process. And so, I mean, the action steps will be modified depending upon context, right? So I would be hard pressed to think that the focal areas would change over the course of the next 3 years, or that the priorities would change over the course of the next 3 years, unless there was a compelling reason to do that. But the action steps are the place where that iterative
Right.
process takes place.
Right.
But do you, I have a bunch of questions,
Yeah.
comments. None for you, but don't worry. Well, the first comment, thank you for reflecting the healthy learning and adding, what is that, 4.2.
Yep.
My second comment is on 4.4 on the detail on Deerfield. My recommendation of the committee is to make a recommendation by this calendar year, for we can actually reflect any changes potentially in budget. So basically try to get that resolved, because, depending on what we decide here as a committee, we should accelerate that, and that's in a level of detail. And then I have two questions, I guess.
Sorry, Tony, it's spring of 2026. Are you saying doing it in the,
Count by
By
December
December.
25.
Okay.
That way we can, if there is a decision, it may
Yep.
impact the budget.
that impacts the budget?
Yeah.
Yep.
Good point.
I can make that edit right here on the floor.
And then, I guess my two questions, one is on 4.3. Are you going to have a dashboard that comes out of this at some point of data? Okay, because, and this is, I know it's a bit of a, but in other words, how do we really measure ourselves? And that's that's a question. And then, I guess to this question, I'm just kind of looking at you. What are your is there an annual part of this? Like, as superintendent, you have to have annual goals.
Yes.
So those are kind of two questions.
Yeah, so on the dashboard part, it's funny because I'm just going to mention Amy because she's out there. Actually, just sent a link to Steve and I today.
Okay.
About potential conversation about a vendor around that, right? So these
Okay.
are conversations that we're having internally.
Right,
It's
okay.
something that there are budgetary implications to that, obviously, but it is something that I'm interested in. In terms of, I think that in terms of my annual goals, they need to be aligned with the district strategic plan. I have not formally presented them
Yeah,
here at this meeting,
okay.
but I can certainly present them at the next meeting
Yeah,
in
fine.
October, and that's fine. But really, there should be, and I would say not just me, but every educator in the district, there should be a through line from district
Right,
goals
okay.
to school goals, if they're school-based personnel, to individual educator goals. And so, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I want to just, kind of double down on, and of course, I'm like flipping through the document. I can't find it right now, so I'm sorry I don't have exactly which priority it is. But the part about communications back to our communities, I feel like now more than ever, we need to be very transparent and clear about what our goals are, where we are as a district, where we want to move, how can we bring the community along in these efforts. So I appreciate, for example, updating the website, having a process for communicating big initiatives and big changes out to the community. Your letters to the community are, always very clear, and we of course have the privilege of seeing them in advance. But I just, I wanted in this, where we are as a community, I think it's really important to be over communicating versus under, and making sure that we're, bringing the community along with our thinking, our strategy, our decision making, and then open to feedback from our community. Thanks.
Thanks.
Agree on
Sorry,
that.
I do have something to say. And I cannot remember because there were a lot of meetings, but I do remember at one point, when we developed the student voice and agency and the authentic, relevant learning experiences, I remember that coming from, we were all in the room, but I think it really came from listening to what the students were saying. And I would love if I saw, under some of the action steps around project-based learning, dual enrollment, internships, so forth. It's in a couple of different action steps, those exact words. Now knowing, even with the Portrait of a Graduate, I think we always knew our students were talented, but really like when we ask them for help, they rise to the occasion. And so I think it would be fantastic if we could continue to solicit their feedback and their thoughts on those specific items, because they're the ones who brought them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, I remember that too. A lot of well, if we're asked, we're happy to. Like if we have the opportunity, we can't wait to, but we don't necessarily have the opportunities.
All right, anything else?
Okay, a lot of work went into this.
Yeah.
so-
No,
Thank you.
and
We
thank you
realize
to
that.
all the, thank you to all the members of, the team in Central. Thank you to all the members of our leadership team. Thank you to all the members who are part of our strategic planning team and are part of the graduate team. This is a lot of voices. I know we had thanked them and listed them at previous meetings, but I do want to thank them for all their work. So, moving forward, I'm going to turn over to Caitlin, who's going to do an update for us on summer curriculum and professional learning.
So it's actually looking
Oh, sorry.
backwards a little bit.
I'm sorry, this keeps flipping.
Yes,
Okay.
this one.
Yeah.
So the summer is a very busy place in Westwood with lots of professional learning and curriculum projects going on. So I'm excited to share a little bit about some of the work that our educators have been engaged in over the summer. So every year we have summer curriculum projects that happen, and the school year is a bit of a sprint, and the summer offers the sort of uninterrupted time to really focus on bigger curriculum projects that are tough to coordinate during the school year. And so every summer it's a competitive process by which educators and department heads submit proposals for work that they see as a priority for the summer, and then we fund and grant as much of it as we're able to do. Some of these projects are putting into place recommendations from curriculum reviews. Some of the projects are to look at changes in standards, changes in programming. We had a couple this summer that were in response to the new financial literacy graduation requirement and shifting things around to better support that. So this year we had 32 projects happening, including over 100 educators giving their time and talents during the summer to produce some really amazing, important work that moves our curriculum forward. So in the accompanying memo, you can see some examples of that work. It spans all levels. I would say there's not a single student in the district who is not impacted positively by the summer work that happens. And so I'm grateful to our department heads, our curriculum leaders, and our teachers for taking their time. And again, after you leave in June, I know it can sometimes be hard to come back, and they don't hesitate. They are always eager to do this work, and we are appreciative. In addition to that, we had district PD courses happening over the summer. We had 2 that happened over the summer and are completed now, and we had 2 that started in the last few weeks and will continue through the fall, with over 50 educators participating in professional development courses. And I should say that the number of educators participating, that is just in the 4 district offered professional development courses. There are a wealth of other PD courses going on all summer long, not necessarily offered by Westwood, that our educators are also participating in. So this is not a complete count of everybody who's learning something new over the summer. But I definitely want to thank our Westwood educators who created, proposed, and facilitated this professional learning. So we have Tom Millett, our high school assistant principal. We have Andrew Miller, our high school science chair, and Chris Taylor, a science teacher who led a course. We have a Pine Hill math specialist, Jen Gillis, who's currently running a course with her colleague Valerie Sharp, a Pine Hill teacher, on building a math community. And Catherine Stewart, our Thurston Humanities Department head, is leading a course that we encourage all of our newer educators to take, and that's building classroom culture. So my thanks to those educators for leading professional development over the summer. Finally, right before school started, we had our new teacher orientation, which is 3 days where we bring all of our new to Westwood folks and folks that maybe aren't new to Westwood but are in a new role in Westwood. The first day is here at the high school, and it's a ton of information. It's a fire hose, but we introduce them to district leaders. We spend a chunk of the morning making them aware of our equity focus, teaching them about our METCO program and what that means for our district. They get their technology, they learn how to log into their email. The second day we spend at Hale in the morning and do outdoor team building, and that is always a highlight. In the 2 years that I've been able to participate now, the feedback is always like, this was different and awesome. So we are excited that continues to be a high point for our new educators. And then the third day is spent in their buildings. So they get to be with their principals, with their teams, they're in their classroom spaces, learning the ins and outs of the new building. We are very excited with our new educators. They bring so much to us, and we learn so much from them, and we're excited to have them on the team. So that was the summer, and now I get to transition into what's ahead. You can keep going more. So I know I've spoken about this to you all before, but just as an overview, the professional development program that we have here in Westwood is very robust. It consists of our early release PD days. So as you're well aware, our students are dismissed early, and our educator days actually slightly extended to allow for more focused time on professional learning. We have the one full day professional development day. On election years, on national election years, it falls on election day in November, and then on the opposite years, it falls on the Monday after Thanksgiving. So this year it'll be December 1st. We have after-school district courses. These are, again, led by Westwood faculty. It, again, is a competitive process. They submit a course proposal, and our Professional Development Council reviews all the proposals, and they review what are the district priorities, what's the needs assessment, what are our educators telling us they want to learn about, what do we need to make sure that everyone can renew their licenses. So the after-school course program is, the proposals are solicited in the spring, and by the beginning of summer we have our slate of offerings for the following year. We also have PD partnerships with a few different external organizations and a tuition reimbursement program. As you're aware, teachers have to renew their licenses. You need specific types of courses to renew your license, and so these partnerships help make sure that we can provide all the courses teachers need, and especially for our teachers that are sort of in lower incidence roles, that maybe if you're a speech and language therapist or if you're an occupational therapist and we don't have the right, or I guess the most relevant professional development in-house, we can get it through our PD partnership. So that's another arm of our program. And then finally we have leader professional learning, and this is through admin council and through our joint council, which includes our department heads, the work that we do together to make sure that we are growing and building our capacity as a leadership team. So those are all the pieces of it, and I'll talk a little bit more about those early release days. So some of the days throughout the year are reserved for parent-teacher conferences, report card writing, teacher collaboration to ensure adequate time for collaboration across the various teams in the district. And then in addition to those days, we divide the days between district-directed days, building-based days, and department days. This year we have one early release afternoon that is district-directed, and I'll talk a little bit more about the focus for that. That just means that in central office, as we're looking at the strategic plan, we are setting the focus for the day and helping to facilitate the professional learning. On the building-based days, it's facilitated by the principals, and that is usually in service of their school improvement plan, a school-wide initiative, if they are looking to bring greater consistency to school processes or programs. That happens on a building-based day. And then finally, department days. This is when educators meet in their departmental teams. It could be a school-based team, like the high school math team comes together, or it could be a K-12. All the visual arts educators are coming together as a K-12 team. And those days are looking at curriculum, assessments, student data, all the things that are particular to the department. That's how we use those days. They are very important to being able to make sure that our classroom instruction keeps moving forward and that our students are getting the best possible experience that we can. So the district PD focus, I am excited about our early release afternoon. October 1st is the one day that we have reserved for district directed PD. At the K-5 level, what our educators are going to be working on is M-Class. This is a new universal screener. We use a universal screener K-8 in literacy and in math. It's an assessment that we administer 3 times a year, and it gives the benchmark data, where are our students, and it helps us flag students at risk for struggle so that we can make sure to prioritize our interventions and supports in the best way. For the last several years, we've used the STAR assessment K-8. Last spring, if you're a parent who gets that STAR report in the mail, we signaled that for K-5 we were exploring different outcomes or different options for a screener, and had landed on M-Class as our screener K-5 this year. So this fall, K-5 parents can expect a slightly different report to come home, and a letter from me will be coming shortly with a sample home connect letter, we call it, with what that might look like. In any event, it's been a long process to select a new screener at the K-5 level. We've been training folks in administering the M-Class assessments, and on October 1st will be our first opportunity to train all elementary educators in accessing the platform, understanding the data reporting, and getting to play around with their student data. So we will have our fall benchmark assessments completed by then, and teachers will be able to get in and look at their student data and use that to start making instructional decisions to support their students. That's what our K-5 crew will be doing on October 1st. Oh my goodness, I've made an error on the slide that I'm just now noticing. It's not just 6 through 8, it's 6 through 12 is what that second bullet is supposed to be about. We are going to dive into universal design for learning, and what we would like to do with that is acknowledging that our educators have a range of experience with learning about universal design, implementing universal design, and there's lots of expertise here in the district around it already. So we have 3 workshops that we will offer. These are live, virtual, but synchronous all at the same time workshops, and educators will be able to self-select into which one makes the most sense. And then in the weeks to come, I'll be working with our middle school and high school leaders to message this out, put a mechanism in place for folks to select, and then depending on the professional development time, our middle school has 30 minutes before the workshop and our high school has 30 minutes after the workshop. So we'll work on how do we leverage that time to build context and then think about how to apply the learning in our different settings. I didn't say this at the start, you've probably figured it out by now. This is clearly in support of the strategic plan and our instructional focus for the year. And then in December 1st, we have our full day, and the format for that full day for this year mirrors what we did last year. And I am remembering that I gave an update about this last year, but it will have a keynote address and then educator-led sessions. This has been a highlight that I've experienced so far in Westwood, where educators propose learning sessions for their colleagues, and then folks get to choose what makes the most sense for their learning and growth at that time. So we will have educator-led sessions with a focus around universal design and student voice and agency, and then concluding with some building-based sessions where folks get to debrief their learning, connect back with their colleagues about what they had learned and experienced during the day, and what does it mean for our setting and our context. So that's the preview for district professional learning for the 2 days that we have with that. And then on the next slide, I just want to share the after-school slate of courses. These are all proposed and facilitated by Westwood educators. I think it's fun to see the range of expertise and passions and interests among our faculty and what they are interested in sharing with their colleagues. So this is our course slate for the year. And again, in this coming spring, we will be soliciting again for next year, and our Professional Development Council will review and make the recommendations on the courses we should offer.
So these are all taught by our own teachers?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
They're taught after school or over the summer, and they're free for Westwood educators, and they can help educators earn professional development points, which help with license renewal. So that's the really quick version. Sorry, I spoke nonstop there, but I'm happy to take any questions about our professional development plans for the year ahead.
I do have a question about the M class.
Yes.
So is that replacing the STAR?
For K-5, yes.
Okay.
6 through 8 is staying the same,
Okay.
so parents can expect that the same similar looking reports that they've seen in previous years will come home.
Okay. And I know that the STAR report has a description about how to interpret the results. I have had a number of parents call me and say, how are you interpreting your results? And I'm like, I sort of let my husband do that because I'm not great at math. But so I'm wondering if there is, for both the M class and for the STAR, does the company provide some sort of a video or a training that maybe we could make parents aware of so that they have another point of reference for interpreting? I think that in the absence of information, what I hear from folks is a little bit of panic. Like, how do I know my kid's really okay? And I've reassured them that I think you'll be contacted if there's concern.
Yes.
I think they'd like to independently be reassuring themselves.
The
Thank
numbers
you
are
for that.
contradictory.
They are.
Yes, on the Star Home report, there's a banner at the top that's criterion referenced, and then the information below is norm referenced, and so it ends up, you get like these 2 color-coded
Yeah.
sets of information about your child that can be contradictory or confusing for sure. What I've tried to do, and I will keep working on this, if you go to the second page of my letter, there's an FAQ on like wait, this doesn't make sense, what do I do? I think the first thing for families is, if you have any concerns whatsoever, don't hesitate to reach out to the teacher. Yes, we will be reaching out to you if we have a concern about your child, and you can always reach out and say, help me understand this, is this something to be concerned about? Another piece is there's a QR code or a I'm not sure if or a website, one or the other, that links to the video that explains the difference between the two scores and how to interpret it. So when families reach out to me, I always say, here's my quick explanation of it, and here's where you can go to the website and watch the video to see how to understand these scores. So I will keep working to make that more clear. I know it's a little bit confusing. For M-Class, they don't have the two different sets of scores. It's
So
not,
it should be more clear.
it's norm referenced, so. it'll
And
be
is
one.
the K through 5 for, the M
Really
class for
interesting.
K through 5 only because it's sort of a trial period with the idea that we would expand it to 6 to 8, or is it only appropriate for K through 5?
That's a great question. So right now, the M-Class is a pilot K through 5 to see if it's meeting our needs. So one of the reasons for the switch is that there is a regulation in Massachusetts that for grades K through 3, you need to be using an approved literacy screener to identify risk for dyslexia. STAR is not one of the approved screeners. M-Class DIBELS is approved by the state, so that was one of the reasons why we were looking to make a shift. We were also finding that the DIBELS, sorry, I'm using a lot of names, the M-Class DIBELS assessment offers us a level of specificity, especially for foundational reading skills, that we weren't getting from STAR. So what I learned last year when I came on board was that we were administering the STAR assessment, and then we were dibbling kids on top of that to really dig in and figure out what was going on. So we feel that at the, especially early literacy, the DIBELS does give us more specific information. Could it go 6 through 8? Almost. DIBELS, yes, goes up through 8th grade at this time. The M-Class math assessment, they're in pilot for this year for the 6 through 8 M-Class math assessment. And I think it is a conversation, I've been having it with Mr. Redmond and our department heads at the middle school level. So far, their STAR is meeting the needs that we have instructionally to understand where our students are. It wasn't having the foundational literacy isn't quite the concern at the middle school level that it is for us at the elementary level. So at this point, we're staying the course with STAR, and it's certainly a continued conversation of what are we missing by not having the same assessment K through 8, and is that a problem in how we're understanding the students as they go from 5th to 6th. And should we be considering a consistent platform?
Is there an equivalent to the STAR that we're using right now for math?
STAR is both
It is
reading
both.
and math.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think for clarity, STAR exists for reading and math K to 5. The company is piloting STAR math in the middle school level, not us. Right? So they haven't fully developed.
Sorry,
Oh,
you said STAR.
I
and
said
you're talking
STAR.
about
No, I meant.
M-Class.
Oh my God, I'm talking about MCAS. Yeah, I should just let you talk. That's just a general good rule of thumb.
So yes, STAR is literacy and math. We've been using it literacy and math K through 8.
Okay.
We are still using STAR literacy and math
Yeah.
6 through 8. M-Class literacy and math K through 5.
Okay.
Is that clarify?
Got it.
Caitlin, I think you said that the M class, the students will be assessed 3 times. So will parents get 3 reports, or will they still just get like fall and spring?
We will still do fall and spring. So STAR was also assessed
Oh,
3
it was.
times,
Okay.
beginning of the year, mid-year, and end of year. With any of these assessments, per state regulations, if a student is performing well below benchmark, we immediately notify the family. Within 30 days of the assessment, we notify the family if their literacy performance falls well below benchmark. That will continue no matter what time, whether it's beginning of the year, mid-year, or end of year. But in terms of the whole, all students sending home the report will continue with fall and spring. Families can always ask their teachers at conference time, report card times, or any time in between what their child's most recent data is, especially after that winter benchmark. I don't have the assessment calendar totally stuck in my brain yet for this year, but we've tried to time our winter assessments so that it feeds nicely into parent conferences in the spring.
So this isn't 100% related to what you've been talking about, but I was intrigued by the detail on the summer programs where you have the 8th grade civics and looking at how you make that real life.
Yeah.
I'd love to at some point, maybe it's a spring after the budget, we implement these things at the state level, or district level, like civics, and then we don't hear much about it. So it'd be great to have a readout, just what's going on, and just maybe an update on that. Maybe it's in the spring, whenever the appropriate time is. So.
I'm imagining like a curriculum fair where we get to show off all the
Well,
great
yeah,
work
I
that
don't
our
know. It's like, I
educators
mean,
have
there's so
done.
much. Yeah, I was just thinking, attended the State House hearing on start time for the legislation. There was actually an 8th grade class from King Philip that zoomed in, and it was really remarkable. It was great, and like they said they don't usually do applause. We all gave them applause, but just there's just so many opportunities like that.
I mean, similar to like the finance literacy.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like, let's share a little bit
yeah,
what
yeah,
this is, yeah.
yeah, whatever. Yeah, I don't know how the format is, but I'd love to learn more.
Excellent, thank you.
And I'm just preemptively saying that families might be a little bit confused between MCAS and MClass.
No,
Yeah.
Just
it's
putting that
not
out
a
there.
Massachusetts company, that's, I think, is the problem when they
Wait,
named it.
MCAS is this week? No, it's MClass. So it's my MClass. So just stating the obvious, but be
For
warned.
literacy, families might hear DIBBLES.
Yeah.
It's the DIBBLES assessment through the M-Class platform, but
Yeah.
for math, it is the M-Class assessment on the M-Class platform, which is not MCAS.
Good luck.
Yes. Thank you. Anything that you can think of that will help me.
We could probably go by
communicate this
acronyms,
clearly.
like Bo Willing.
It already is one, right?
And just in terms of the new teachers, there is one of the new teachers I've had the privilege of knowing since she was 6. And she's a new math teacher at the Thurston. And it's just amazing to me to be able to have watched her through Westwood Public Schools, onto college, onto her master's, and now back to Thurston. So it's just a testament to all the great work that the district is doing.
All right, I think we've come to the end of the lengthy superintendent's report tonight.
Thank
That was
you.
quite a superintendent's report.
Well, there's been a lot going on,
Yeah,
so I'm
no,
happy to
it's
share.
great, it's great. Okay, we are now going to move into public participation. This is the time of our meeting when we invite members of the public to come up and speak to the board. It's not responsive, it's just, you provide feedback and we just kind of take it in. If you are interested in speaking, we ask you to come up and state your name and address. We do ask for a 3-minute limit on comments. So at this time, I'd like to invite anyone who's interested to come up and speak. Okay. Hi.
My name's Tom O'Leary. I live on Salisbury Drive in Westwood.
Okay.
And it's been a while since I've been in a school committee meeting. But I would like to understand the committee and the superintendent's position on how the Charlie Kirk thing was handled, or the lack of how it was handled.
So as I mentioned, this isn't a responsive platform. We do have office hours that I'll talk about when I talk about the chair's update, when you can come in and it's much more of a back and forth. But you're welcome to sort of give us your viewpoint and we can listen.
Yeah, I guess my viewpoint is, right, like, there's been other things of similar type of natures, right, where communication has been sent by the school, right? And I have a copy of a letter that was a communication that was sent internally in the system about disappointment in the presidential election results in November. But the death of a person who, regardless of his political motivations and positions, to be shot, I mean, I'm assuming most of you guys have kids of school age, right? Tell me you didn't see the video. I mean, it was horrific, right? I had friends call, members of the community that have small children, right? Asking what the school was doing about it, and everybody got different responses. It's not the district that responds. We allow the schools to do that on their own. When I followed up with children and parents whose kids were in those schools today, there was nothing mentioned of support. There was, except one person mentioned that a teacher said, if you haven't seen the video, you should not watch it. To me, it's a very learning experience, especially in the world that we're living in today, between right and wrong and how you communicate that to the children. of not just this community, in every community. It's just sad and it's unfortunate. And the fact that there was no communication, no acknowledgement of it, just speaks volumes to me of what's going on. To me, it's just crazy. So I will take you up on the personal. How will I know? Will you send me a note or?
I'm about to announce them.
Okay, great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to say anything? No? All right, with that, I'll close public participation. I'm going now into the chair's update. So first, I just wanted to highlight the school committee meetings of this year. The meetings have all been set. They've all been posted to the website. I just wanted to highlight that our next meeting in October is actually on a Tuesday. It's October 14th. And our December meeting is on a Wednesday. Those are off of our normal cadence. So I just wanted to highlight those, and I just want to make sure everyone checks the website to make sure you know when all of the school committee meetings are going to be. Following on that, another scheduling, we have finalized the dates for the school committee office hours or roundtables. These are the sessions that we hold 4 times a year. This is when anyone in the community can come, and we usually have the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and at least 2 of us meeting, and we alternate between evening sessions and morning sessions so that, you know, depending on your schedule, you can pick which one is right for you. And this is a time when you can come and ask questions, and we will, you know, respond in real time, and it's much more of a back and forth. And we instituted those because we did feel that the public participation was very limiting in how we communicated with the community. We wanted to make sure we gave people a time to actually speak and respond and have an open dialogue with us. So those dates, I don't think they're on the website yet, so maybe we can get those up on the website. But the first one is October 20th. That is 6:30 to 8 p.m. All of them, I think, will be in the PD room of the high school in the administrative office. The second one is January 12th from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. The third one is March 9th from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And finally, the last one will be May 11th from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. So we welcome everyone. We typically send around a link and ask people to register ahead of time just so we get a sense of what the topics will be, but anyone is welcome to attend. Are there any other reports from liaison groups? I know it's early in the year. People might not have even met yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Okay. All right. So going into discussion items, the first topic is the facility study, communication, and outreach plan. I just wanted to say a couple words. I know that everyone is aware that on Tuesday, the town did vote no for the fire station projects. What we're about to talk about is the communication plan that we have for the facility study that we presented in the spring and are continuing to discuss with the community. I think the fire station project is certainly still going to move forward, as I understand it, in some form or another. I haven't heard any specific details. I'm not sure there are any specific details yet about what that project will look like and the timing of it. And so because of that, we thought it was still appropriate to continue on our timeline with communicating out, holding the feedback sessions, and still trying to get to a resolution by December about if we're going to submit a statement of interest to the MSBA, which project that will be for. So we haven't altered the timeline at all. We're just going to sort of keep it the way it is. We're going to see how the fire station project shakes out. I think that I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, there is future work on the fire station still to come. So I will turn it over to you to talk specifics.
Yeah, sure, thank you. And I'm actually going to begin just with some background and some information we've already presented previously for those that may not have been paying attention to this in the spring, just to kind of bring this back. So in the spring of 2024, we began work on a master facilities plan that had 2 key goals. The first was to identify the capital improvement needs for our schools across the district and to create a prioritized list of work with estimated costs. And actually, we'll talk about the preliminary FY27 capital budget, and you'll see that reflected in the FY27 capital conversation we'll have momentarily. But goal number 2 is about developing options for a long-range plan that addresses our district-wide educational facility needs with a particular focus on Thurston and Sheehan, right? We know that those are our 2 buildings in greatest need. We want to make sure that we are looking at long-range plans there. This slide, I'm not going to go over the slide in detail. We presented this in the spring, but there are 6 options that range from a status quo to adding modulars, to building a new 6th through 8th Thurston, to building a new elementary school, would be a consolidation of MJ and Sheehan, to redistricting, or to potentially redistrict and build a new 5th through 8th school. There is a lot here. The decision about a particular option, and I'll talk about this in a second, does not need to be made for quite some time. But really the first key decision point is which school is the priority for our statement of interest. So we need to identify that school, and it's either going to be Thurston or Sheehan, by the end of December, actually at the December school committee meeting, so that we can use the months of January through March to complete the statement of interest, to write the statement of interest for the Massachusetts School Building Authority. I don't have a slide that says this, but certainly folks in the committee know, and hopefully folks in the community are aware, the MSBA is the state agency that provides funding to support school construction projects in the state. They're funded by a penny of the sales tax. So we need that time from January to March to complete the statement of interest. It requires approval by the school committee and the select board, and then submitting that statement of interest to the MSBA, which is part of their competitive funding process, in April of 2026. The second decision point, which is the one that happens a lot later in the process, would be what are the key features of the priority school. So if we're accepted into the MSBA pipeline, we need to conduct a feasibility study. We would examine new construction, renovation, and repair. We'd look at size, enrollment, grade configuration. We'd look at location, if there are potential locations on the table. And if accepted into the pipeline in December of 2026, and that's a realistic timeline based upon an April submission, we wouldn't be making those decisions until the end of feasibility sometime in late 2028 or in 2029.
Because it takes that long.
Because it takes that long.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
Thank you for the clarity on
grounds.
that. Yeah, we're not pausing here, right?
Right,
This is
right,
the sort of
right.
the fast track.
And that feasibility is where, if you go back to all those different 6 through 8, 5
Yeah.
through 8, that's where we would sort of narrow it down and really come up with one of
Yeah,
those.
so essentially to walk it through on this slide, right? If Sheehan were identified as the priority project, we would realistically be looking on this chart at options 1, which is status quo, because you always need to examine the status
Yeah.
quo option, just continued repair. Option 2, which is adding modulars. Option 4, which is a new elementary school. And there might be some other iteration of that comes out of there, right? If Thurston were identified as the priority school, we would need to look at option 1, option 2, option 3, which is a new 6th through 8th Thurston, option 5, which is a redistricted and new 6th through 8th Thurston, and option 6, which is redistricting new 5-8 Thurston, which could be a co-located 5, 6, and 7, 8 building. And so that decision point would be made through the feasibility study process and would not be completed until late 2028, 2029. To walk this out over an overall timeline, that would mean, and the thing that is not on here, right, and a question about like when would the town make a decision, when would they voice whether they support the project, when would we need to procure funding, that is realistically, this shows starting design in 2028, starting construction in 2030. The vote would likely happen sometime in 2029, or somewhere on there realistically, for what that would look like. So we're still a ways off from that conversation, but I just want to provide that context here.
I'm sorry, Tim, even a design proposal would be after, like,
Yeah,
I know we've gone over this.
Yeah, so let me actually say, it could be 29. That's probably the realistic thing. I would say that depending upon the nature of the project and the size of the project, there are actually 2 different construction paths.
Right.
One path is design, bid, build. That's what we did with Pine Hill, where you fully design the project, then you bid out the project that's fully designed. The other methodology is called CM at Risk. Under CM at Risk, you bring a construction management company on earlier on in the process. They actually help complete some of the design with you.
Okay.
But you need to have a solid enough and it's Chapter 149 versus Chapter 149A. You need to have a solid enough project with a solid enough budget to be able to bring to the voters, right?
Okay.
So the timelines for those processes are slightly different, but yeah, that's realistically a vote in like 2029.
Okay.
And so even after the vote, like you're continuing, you still need to like procure filed sub-bids, for example. So it's not like you vote on March 1st and the shovels are in the ground March 2nd, right? There's a gap that takes place there. And so this is aiming towards an occupancy in September of 2032. So as it relates to the decision point that's most rapidly in front of the committee, is that first decision point, as I said before, comes to the December school committee meeting where the priority school, either Thurston or Sheehan, needs to be identified as the focus of a statement of interest for the MSBA this spring. So in preparation, it's important for us to communicate about the study and its options throughout the fall and to gather feedback that's going to inform those deliberations. And so to do that, we're going to hit this through multiple approaches. Obviously, and this is not on the list, but our school committee meetings, our school committee office hours are places where those conversations can certainly take place. We're currently scheduling all of PTO meetings at each of the schools. I will say the two biggest priorities are obviously going to Thurston and Sheehan. The Thurston PTO meeting is scheduled for this Monday, the 15th. The Sheehan PTO meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 30th. So those dates are on the calendar. I know there are some other dates that are coming up in September as well too, but those will be publicized through the individual schools. We want to hold 3 public forums. We will do 2 of those in person, 1 of those in Zoom. The 2 public forums, we'll do one in the evening. We'll do one sort of just after drop-off time in the morning so we can catch families for what time may be best for them. We're looking at spacing these out maybe 2 weeks apart, sort of mid-October, late October, mid-November. And for an in-person location, we're thinking we're going to try to use the large meeting room at the town library, right? We want to be on neutral ground for these conversations. If we're doing one of these during the day, we don't want to interrupt the flow of school, and so we're looking to use the town library for that. And so once we have those dates confirmed, we'll share those out with the community. And then it's just part of a regular cadence of updates to families in the district that will be part of our outreach communication plan. So. And during those meetings, really, it's important that there are 2 parts of that. One part is us talking about essentially like this slide and what the implications are, what we've learned from the study. And the other part is really listening, listening to the feedback of what the residents that attend, what the families that attend have to say, so that it can help inform the deliberations of this committee as you're going to make a decision in December. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have or just to hear your comments or thoughts around this approach. So.
Yeah, I've got a few comments. I think it's very focused, but the timeline, I'd like to build that out a little bit. I don't think it's enough.
This one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
even
we
if
can
it's like,
certainly do that.
even if it's placeholders, because I mean,
This is, and again, this is all subject
Oh,
to,
I know.
like, this
But I
is
just-
so high level and
Yeah.
so,
it's just a little bit too high level. Like, just if, assuming we get accepted, ballpark one of these votes. I mean, it doesn't have to be everything, but because I went through it, we went through it once. I don't even remember. So that's more of a tactical
and
thing.
I think also to that point, I think it would also, again, on the assumption we're in the MSBA, to
Yeah.
overlay the MSBA process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, when would
Yeah.
feasibility
Yeah.
start? When does, when is the town meeting vote? When is that kind of thing? So yeah, we'll build it out.
And 2 other comments. The second comment, is there any town stuff? I know you're going to the Finance Commission maybe generally as your normal. Is that going to be part of that normal?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had a conversation with FinCom yet about
Okay.
our process on that. I mean, I think we typically do like an advanced meeting in the fall to kind of talk about where we are. I think there may be other conversations about how do we bring, this is less of a public-facing thing and more of a board-facing thing. How do we bring the select board or the finance committee into some
Yeah.
of the conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave it to you, but it's just,
Yeah.
I think, there has been feedback just about looking at everything in a town perspective, so. A third comment, we don't have to decide now. It might be helpful to get clarity around, are those meetings going to be school committee meetings or not? Because sometimes I'm like, oh, if it's a school committee meeting, we need a quorum, but otherwise you say, well, we only can have 2 people, so.
Right.
We should just give some, I mean, we can have some discussion on
Yeah.
that, but.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember for Pine Hill, I don't think the road shows prior to the getting into the MSBA were school committee meetings, but once we were in and we started having those community forums where we were
Yeah.
sticking things on walls and we were really those were school committee meetings because all 5 of us were there.
Yeah.
So we could follow that model again, where
Yeah.
we just have 2 people at these sessions, these community forums, and since there's 3 of them, we'll each have an opportunity to go.
Yeah, I just want to give a chance if there's live feedback. It's hard to
Yeah.
get that unless you're there.
Well, I think we're gonna try and record them.
Okay, well.
Yeah, I think in an ideal world we'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, we could do a hybrid. If it's I don't know. We can talk about it more. But
We
if it's
can
a
talk
live one,
about
maybe it makes. I mean, it's just hard if you're not there to. If there's feedback being people
Yeah,
talking.
right, yeah.
And I can watch a recording, I guess. But
I mean, if we wanna make them school
Yeah.
committee meetings, we can.
yeah,
We just
I don't know
have to
what
post
people.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
We can talk about
Yeah.
that.
That's it. That's all.
So kind of building off of that, oh shoot, what was my point? I think it would be helpful, and I might have mentioned this in the spring, if at these public forums, let's be gathering questions that people are asking, answers that we're sharing and delivering, so that we can be creating kind of an ongoing live and maintained
FAQ.
FAQ,
Yep.
so that the community can see where people, questions that are being asked and the answers that we're sharing.
Yeah, I think, I'm just thinking, like, right, we're not gonna have a lot of answers.
Right.
So I think the FAQ will probably come more if we get into the program and we start a project. I'm just thinking between now and December, the feedback is really for us to kind of take it back and try and figure out which project we want. So we might not, I'm not sure an FAQ would be helpful for this portion of the project, but once we are in the project, then yes.
I agree with that. However, I do think that there are a lot of questions in the community about timing, and so I wonder if, some of these details distilled down a little bit could be a starting place for an FAQ, just like, here's where we are now, here's where we intend to go, so that people can see the timeline and that we have a place
Oh, yeah.
that's a reference point,
So-
to share with folks.
Right, so you mean the timeline that we're gonna build out, that one we,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at, like when the forums are and, just some of the details that are in this, memo that are here, but on different slides, I think would be helpful for people to have that all in one place. So that we
Yeah, I
can
think
So
I
the
think I can
website-
acknowledge too, right, and we've had conversation about essentially taking the portion of the website that was dedicated to the Pine Hill project previously
Right, yep.
and repurposing that for this purpose,
great,
right?
sure. Yep.
And so that's something that we've been having conversations about.
I think some other things that would be helpful to be included in something like that would be like the pros and cons of going through that MSBA, because I know we've had some questions about that, and similarly, like what happens if we're not accepted, and the timing and all of that. I know, Tim, you've done a nice job in corresponding with different members of the community about that, so if we could have kind of a catch-all place.
yes, so I take it back, maybe we do need an FAQ.
Well, and if only just to be, to share, these are some questions, these are some of our thinking.
Yeah.
This is what we're thinking
Yeah.
now. And again, I want to just express to the town that none of these options have been predetermined. We're looking and we're coming to the town for feedback in order to help, make this decision and decide what direction we should go. So it's really important for us to get this feedback, and then it's really important for us to kind of share that feedback back with the community too, to say we're listening, we hear you, we understand these concerns, and we're trying to bring you along in the process. It's just, again, going back to, like, we can't over communicate in this process. It's too important. And thinking of what you said about the MSBA and the conversation pros cons of going through the MSBA or not, I think might be helpful too to share again the timeline of if we went through the MSBA and if we didn't,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
what that, if there are any savings of time. There's an urgency. I sensed an urgency in the town from our families, especially around some issues at Thurston. So, reviewing the pros and cons and the benefits in the timeline for going through the MSBA or not.
And the final thing I'll say is while we don't have to decide on those 6 options, the options we make in December is actually pretty important. It's the elementary school and the middle school.
Yeah.
So I just think reinforcing that configuration, all that, but that actually drives, obviously,
Absolutely.
everything going forward. So I think just reinforcing that with people, independent of the 6, 10, whatever, 20 options. And that's not, it's 3 months away. I mean, just
So everyone needs to come. We need lots of feedback.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Anything else on the facility study communication plan? Okay.
what's next? Is there any communication going out? at
Yeah,
some
as soon
point?
as we finalize the dates,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
just working
Yeah,
through with the
absolutely.
library, and we're just trying to,
Great.
and then I think the PTO dates,
PTO
have
dates that are
been-
being communicated directly from the
right,
PTOs.
from the
so-
PTOs, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, great.
So go to your PTO meetings. Okay, moving on to the Sheehan Playground Project. This is an opportunity for Sheehan that I think, Rebecca, did you want to come up and present?
And I hope I got these from Lana this morning, so I hope these are the most updated slides. So.
We'll find out in a minute.
Yeah.
Hello, good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us. Small representation here of a much larger group of Sheehan parents and Sheehan parents-to-be. We are the Sheehan Playground Committee. So this started about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. Really just looking at the Sheehan Playground, I think really in the context of everything you just covered about the facilities and the future of the uncertain future of the building, but knowing that no matter what, it will be a while before anything were to happen, if anything were to happen. And zooming out a little bit, I think thinking about everything that happens on a playground. It's physical activity for sure, but it's social emotional learning, it's community building, and it's all really important and really enriching. And the word revitalization really was so important to us. It was this idea of like breathing life into something and reimagining something and giving kind of new opportunity. So we have a whole mission statement. I don't need to read it, but that's really, we thought a lot about kind of like what was driving this project. You can go to the next slide. So why this initiative? Well, Sheehan is really highly utilized. It's not just the Sheehan students. It's proximity to the soccer fields, to one of the baseball fields. It's used by children across town while their siblings are playing, right? I mean, it's really central. And so it is a really important location. And we know that the equipment is inspected regularly and it is safe, but it doesn't take scrutiny to notice that it's well past its prime. And I think there's really just a lot of opportunity. We felt there was a lot of opportunity to, again, revitalize, to breathe some new life into it. So you can skip, yep. So where we started was really just collaborating with the town before we got going on anything, finding out what were we working within, what were the parameters, what were the needs, was there interest, did this make sense? And again, kind of coming, so timely to come kind of right after that presentation, right? Knowing that what the town needed, as we understood it, really was flexibility, right? That we don't know what the future of the building is and we don't know what the future of the grounds are. And so anything we put on there would need to be, we had to reassure could be taken apart, stored, and reinstalled if and when that point was necessary, if it came to that, and that we would not be resurfacing it, that we would stay with wood chips, which just makes that process easier. Next slide. So I come tonight with a $35,000 check, which we very, from the bottom of our hearts, hope you will vote to accept. And it seemed prudent not just to present a check and then ask you to kind of start the process of thinking through it, but to have done that work as part of this initiative. And so we worked with Kristen and with staff members and with the town and with the equipment
Installer.
vendor, thank you, whoever said that word, that was not there for me, to really think through what made sense. And as parents, I think what makes sense. And the picture that's on the screen right now is the Nucleus Core Climber by Burke, which is a very well-respected equipment vendor, equipment company. They're not the vendor, but, and I think there are several things that I think are worth noting about this structure. One is we don't have anything like that currently at the Sheehan Playground. So this would add a completely new component of play to the current playground. We think a lot about, for anybody who's had a child go to the School Street Playground, I know for me, my daughter goes immediately to that climbing structure, right? And there's so much that happens there, and the pride and the excitement and the interaction with the kids. There's so much that happens there, and so we know that those are very popular. There's something on the Pine Hill Playground I think they really do go to, and so the main difference you'll notice is that the one at School Street is a gigantic, kind of very wide structure, where this is much more vertical, and that's really helpful because it doesn't take up nearly the square footage of something that is the other shape. And so this kind of bang for your square footage buck, we felt like this structure would give us the opportunity to put something new, something vibrant, something that we've seen be very popular, something that's not currently there, and something that would fit in space, which was so important. I'm pretty sure I've already covered, yeah, you can go next. I'm pretty sure I already covered everything on this. But I think it was helpful to do that with the visual. I think that's pretty much it. Great, so we can move on. So this slide has information that Lemma asked. So we worked with Childscapes, which is the vendor that put together the School Street Playground, and I believe Martha Jones back in the day, but definitely the School Street Playground. They have a good relationship with the town. They are a vendor for Burke equipment. They're very responsive. They've been incredible. And really, I told Lemma I got like an inadvertent master's degree in playground design through this initiative. So this slide was information that we asked them to give us. I think this was Lemma's idea to put it there.
I think it was conversation probably between Childscapes, the liaison, and Tom Terry.
That's a generous
our
answer.
facilities director.
It was probably Lemma. But the idea that, initially we had been working with like, well, what would be the trade-off? What would we have to take out in order to do this? And then at the conclusion of this project, the realization that with that nucleus core climber, we could actually leave everything that is currently on the playground, not have to remove anything, and take a space that's really not currently optimized and utilize it with a totally new piece of equipment. And so in the estimate that they gave us includes putting wood chips, sort of redoing the surfacing there with wood chips, and then being able to install it. The lead time is about 8 weeks. It does tend to go down this time of year because the lead time gets really long in the spring and summer. So they estimated 8 weeks. It could be faster, but we're going with 8 weeks, which means if a PO were to be issued tomorrow, we would have it around Thanksgiving. Childscapes has installed equipment in the ground as late as December. They said it just depends on kind of when the ground really freezes, and that if the structure were ordered and we were sort of able to secure the pricing for 2025 and the ground froze too early, they would prioritize us early 2026 for installation. And our hope is just to have it the sooner the better. So much work has gone into this, so much heart and soul has gone into this, so much blood, sweat, tears, and lack of sleep has gone into this, and it would just, we want to be able to celebrate as a community and have this there for the children. And thank you. But I'm here. Like I said, I have an inadvertent degree in playground design. If you have questions, but we thank you for your time and commitment to the children in this community, and sincerely hope that you will take our money.
That's a dilemma after we vote.
Does anyone have any questions? I just have one sort of logistical.
Sure.
I saw the playground will need to be closed down for about 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Would they be willing to do that sort of over a long weekend, or would that be during the school week?
Yeah, so Lemma and I sort of debated whether or not to include that in the presentation for a couple of different reasons. So the first reason was that I had that exact conversation with our vendor, but I had it verbally and I had it like last November. So the ability to recall it and then put it in writing felt somewhat nebulous. But at one point when I thought maybe the Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day weekend, would that be an option? We won't obviously make that timeline, but I think he had said yes, they would be willing to do that. I know Lemma, kind of the second issue was flagging if there's town participation in that, is there overtime? So I think that's a decision that the answer is yes, it's an option.
Okay.
I just think those specifics would have to be worked out at the reality scheduling level.
Yep.
And as they say, above my pay grade.
Your pay grade
Of 0, yeah. I'm a social worker, so most things are above my pay grade. Anything else?
Well, thank you for all your effort. I mean,
Yeah.
thank you. This is
Yeah.
remarkable.
Thank
And this
Yeah.
is great.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
be able to
Kids are going to be really happy.
put something there, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
And thank you for the consideration of the longer term, property and being able to, put it and then take it away and then
Yeah.
bring it back.
I think making this realistic is really important. Like, there's no point in doing all this work to have something that doesn't work for the town.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks, Rebecca.
I'll hold on to it.
all so much.
Okay, we are now moving on to a proposed revision to our security cameras in school. This is a specific
Yeah, this is just a very specific, I know the committee has a copy of a proposed amendment to policy ECAF about security cameras in schools. Really, the genesis of this, we are not looking to totally revamp our security camera policy or anything like that. But in conversation, we have been having conversation with Connolly Bus Company about potentially installing cameras on school buses. It's an opportunity to provide our commitment to safe environments for our students, both in school and other school-related activities. They have been a willing partner in this. As part of this, it would be a cloud-based system where we would control the video footage related to cameras. It would allow us to both address issues as they arise, but also be a preventative deterrent as it relates to unwanted behaviors on school buses. Our current security camera policy, as it reads, it says the school committee authorizes the use of security cameras in school district buildings and on its property. School buses don't fall into either of those categories. So it would add the phrase, let me just make sure I have the exact right phrasing for the public record here. It would add the phrasing, school transportation vehicles to that list. That would be inclusive of not only Connolly Bus, but if we were also able to work with our vendors as it relates to other transportation like school, vans or things like that. That policy would cover both what's in the immediate and what might happen for future expansion down the road. It's also my recommendation, because this is I don't think this is necessarily a functional change in the intent of the policy, but that we could potentially bring this forward for a second reading and a vote at our meeting in October that would allow us to move forward with installation. So happy to answer any questions. I want to thank Lena and Steve Roulette, who have done a bunch of work on this. But knowing that this would require a policy change, it's important we brought it to the committee here first.
And I think because we would own access to the video, then all of the student privacy regulations that we have in place would apply to the cameras.
Yeah, I know Steve has been in contact with our partners at Tech. They're the Data Privacy Alliance,
Yep.
And has had those conversations around that. We're content with the answers we've received on that front.
Somehow, some students already know about this. So will there be some sort of overview for students and parents, like what the use of, how this will all work?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think to your point, it's important for us to communicate to families that this is taking place. I think part of that may have been we talked about wanting to do this, and then once you say one thing to there's a game of telephone that may happen. But clearly this requires an act with the committee first, which is why that we're here. But yeah, I think we want to be clear about, at least with families, what they're being used for. So yeah, the short answer is yes, and then I talked for another 5 minutes on top of that. So.
I think it would be helpful for students too, to understand what it's being used for and kind of how far, where the line is, right, in terms of what we're kind of capturing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we have cameras in schools,
Right.
right? So presumably, I think it would be analogous.
Absolutely, right, and that's why we're proposing amending the same policy.
Yeah. And yet still it feels a little bit more of a closed environment.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate the extra, communication to families and to students to help them understand the implication of having a camera on the bus.
Well, what I was hearing is it's going to be gotchas, if they say something wrong, and it obviously that's not the intent. It's more for, egregious type things, so.
A couple questions. Does it have volume or just is it video?
It would have audio and video.
How many cameras? We're talking one camera at the front?
We are proposing 4.
Oh.
4.
Yeah, so it would be
Okay.
one at the front. This is based on conversations with Conley Bus Company that other districts have found that 4 is really
Okay.
effective. So one in the front kind of facing backwards, one midway kind of facing backwards, one looking out the door to see students entering and exiting, and just the safety pieces are on that. And then one looking at the traffic flow and the whether a vehicle has vehicle stopping. So that would be on the side of the bus in the exterior.
Because there was legislation on this, wasn't there? That you can actually, I'm not saying we should, use it from a law enforcement perspective? Like tickets?
Yeah, I don't know if that legislation passed or not. I don't recall.
Meaning if somebody runs the stop sign.
Yeah.
And
I
goes
think
around a bus.
If the police get the footage, there could be some action.
Because there's one on the
some-
outside, you're saying, in theory.
There would be one on the outside. I think,
We should just talk to the
Yeah.
chief and all that, I think. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
because if we have the video, I mean, I don't know what the laws are on, like, if something really bad happened to me.
Yeah. And I like sharing that as well, that it's not just for, kind of deferment of poor behavior and choices, but also for, safety, always for safety.
I mean, the way I see it, is safety is the ultimate goal.
Correct.
And that is also why behavior is important to manage. It's because it's in the interest of safety. So for all of those reasons, like that's why the exterior views as well as the interior views are really important, just to reinforce the right things that we need so that everyone stays safe.
What percentage of, I'm just curious, is this what everyone does most nowadays, or is it?
Yeah, I don't have any data.
Yeah,
You
so
have data.
I
but-
did. I didn't go like statewide or anything, but
that's
at least
fine.
anecdotally from Conley Bus Company, they work with 13 districts, and there are only 2 that don't have
Oh, okay.
cameras on their buses, and we're one of them. So it's now becoming more, the standard.
Okay.
At school
I
districts.
mean, you definitely see on Instagram, right? Like
Try to
egregious
stay out
behavior
there.
replayed from camera buses.
It's in your feed, huh? I mean, you might cover this soon, but the cost implication of this?
There are, we thought about, how to structure this, and because we don't own the buses, it's the best way is to kind of work it into our bus contract. So in the first year, it would be an amendment to our bus contract, and it's a low cost. It's like $2 per bus per day, that kind of thing. So, but it would be an amendment to our bus contract currently, and then we would bid it into the future bus contract that we obtain, so that whether it's Conley Bus Company or another company, we haven't incurred the full cost up front. They incur some of the risk, ultimately in procuring the equipment, but they were comfortable with that, and they've worked that model with other districts. The cost of the subscription we also thought about, there is for the the footage, because we will own the footage, so we'll need to pay that cost. We think we can absorb it within the bus fees, and because of the participation that we've seen in our buses, so we just have a sizable ridership. So I don't see a challenge there. And the value, I mean, really at the end of the day, the ease of access to footage will be very important for us and for administrators, and the fact that we control this footage. So it won't be on an SD card somewhere that's not in our custody. It will be immediately in the district custody, so it's the preferred way to go with a cloud-based system.
Yeah, I would echo that. Having worked in a district where we had implemented cameras many years before, and it was not a cloud-based system, the challenge of actually like having to go to the bus depot, which was off-site in our case, pulling the video, waiting until the bus got back to actually be able to pull the video, the timeliness with which we were able to access things from a safety perspective, this is a much better model. So.
And is there a time frame for how long we keep the footage?
I haven't asked that, we can find out.
Okay. I know there's certain records that get destroyed at a certain point.
30 days, Steve was on the,
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
on that Zoom call.
yep, 30 days.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so this is the first reading.
Okay.
I think that we would probably waive the third reading and maybe, but we can talk about it at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Ethan, anything to say about cameras on buses?
Nope.
Okay.
Except that Instagram comment. I mean, I've seen it as well.
See, yeah, right? Right?
Guys
It's
on
not
the
just
same
my
page.
feed, right?
Well, now we're all gonna get it.
I know.
Everyone's listening.
All right, we're gonna turn it over to Lemma for the FY27 capital requests.
Okay, great. So I appreciate the fact that we talked about the facilities capital plan earlier in tonight's meeting. So you kind of have context on the homework and the reading that Tom Carey and I did in preparing what I've submitted as a draft 5-year capital budget. And I just want to start by saying it is really early. I will pivot very quickly to start talking about operating budget, but it's early when we do this at the start of the school year, and this is a draft document. I should have put draft all over it, because what I'm seeking here is just some commentary and directional feedback from the school committee as we start a process that's multiple months long, where we go through multiple iterations. We consult with town officials. There's a FinCom subcommittee that sometimes provides feedback on our capital requests. So there will be more work done on this document, but the intent is to develop a plan for the annual capital budget, which historically has been about 1.1 million, and also to think about any special capital articles or other articles that would be presented at town meeting next spring that would specifically fund priority projects for the schools. So in that, I would say you see that we have kind of the traditional categories that are part of our annual capital. The methodology that I take there is to request kind of an even amount of funding for all the 5 years within a category. So you'll see HVAC every year is 300,000. That's not because that's the round number that we spend on HVAC repairs in any particular year, but by doing this, we spread the expense out, we stabilize our budgeting, and since these funds can roll year to year, I can plan accordingly for a year in which we have higher expenses than others. And in the narrative, I highlight some of the things that are on our mind after reading the Dorn-Whittier reports. They are very lengthy and detailed and were very helpful to understand, both for me and Tom Carey. And so we've reflected on what are the district priorities there, as well as looking at older reports and studies that we've done with SMMA. In HVAC, I would just point out that even as we are talking about a potential building project and an SOI to the MSBA, we continue to maintain the buildings that we have. So I've looked at all of the needs there, and of course the high school building, being a very large one, has a massive amount of HVAC equipment that is now at 20 years old and slowly needs to start to be reviewed. We need to chip away at that. So that would be part of the consideration for this annual capital budget. We can start to pick away at the rooftop units and replace the ones that are starting to fail on a frequent basis by looking at the number of repairs that we're making on them. We also have equipment at Martha Jones and Downey that we're watching, and so that's another area as well. So it's both staging our work and preparing for that. So that's HVAC. In the area of roofing, I will be speaking more at the October meeting about the roof projects this summer, but as a reminder, in 2023 and 2024, we did an infrared moisture study of all of our buildings to understand the condition of the roofs. That is still something we continue to monitor regularly. And so the findings of that study were that Sheehan and Thurston roofs were the most at need. We have replaced a section of the Thurston roof that's only the modular, but the remaining sections continue to require work, and we are taking a repair approach to it rather than a replacement or anything of that sort, while we continue to pursue the investigation around what would be the district SOI and what approach we want to take to the building. The Sheehan is similar, and then as you know, for the high school, we had a separate capital article for $2.5 million that funded a high school restoration. That is underway now, but that takes care of that building, and we have Martha Jones and Downey then to continue to maintain and protect. So those are the things on my mind there, and we would be requesting $300,000 for roofing to start to chip away and build a reserve for one of those buildings as we get there. We had previously, by the way, had $1 million reserve as we entered the summer, and that was really critical because it allowed us to pivot and respond when we were budgeting for these projects at Thurston and the high school. The next one is technology. So we have capital funds here allocated to our one-to-one program, one-to-one device program, across all grades. And our devices are generally on a 5-year refresh cycle, but we renewed a lot of our devices in 2024 due to the pandemic. We invested in purchasing a lot of devices. We added to our kind of inventory of devices as well as renewed. And we're not in 2025 because we've stretched the timeline on that refresh a little bit beyond 5 years, because replacing all of those devices in a period of 5 years, it comes at a significant cost. So what we've done is study really closely how much we can, how much life we can squeeze out of the devices that are out there in our students' hands and in the buildings, and we've staged it out. I would say I'm happy that we have $500,000 set aside for technology replacement next year, which is when we'll encounter a really big expense of about $760,000 in expected costs. So we have 500 set aside, and we are hoping for 250 in the next funding cycle. This puts us in a good place to fund that big investment, and then other years are a little bit more reasonable. So we'll hopefully start to build a reserve again thereafter. So that's the plan for technology. In terms of building improvements and security, this is kind of a catch-all bucket because it takes up a lot, but what I would highlight here is that our intent is to continue to focus on fire panels, electrical panels, because those are safety items and they certainly would be very disruptive if they are not functioning. There are kitchen electrical panels at Martha Jones and Downey that are particularly ready for replacement, and so those are on my mind in the coming year. We also, after reading the Doran Whittier reports, think we really need to take a more phased approach at the exterior envelopes of our buildings and masonry, water sealing, maintenance of that type that has been neglected for a while. So we want to start to take pieces of that and do it year by year. There are also always opportunities for flooring and interior finishes. These are things that affect the students more because they experience them. So we need to attend to both the exterior envelope and the integrity of the building, but also the experience of our students and staff. That's in the building improvements bucket. In furniture, I don't have a plan yet, so I'm uncommitted, but I always respond to principal requests as part of the budget process for how we will invest our dollars on furniture. But we've done nice things with the funds in FF&E in the last couple of years, and so high school students this year saw that we replaced cafeteria furniture as part of an effort to allow the students, allow for more comfortable seating space, not only at the time when we have meals, but also at other times during the day when that's an important area where students can gather and study or congregate, meet, socialize. So that's on furniture. Copiers, we continue to invest in copiers a little bit less than we have in the past, probably because of our investment in technology, but I monitor the health of our copy machine fleet because it's important for all of our staff. And then in the last category in the annual capital budget is vehicles. So I provided a list of the vehicles that we have and their ages and the intended year of replacement. We are planning to purchase, hopefully, if I get things done, it's called a student activity bus, one of those kind of short buses this year with funds that we've already set aside for vehicles, but we also foresee a need to replace in the coming year a food service truck that's used for transporting food to our other kitchens, as well as the year after that, a utility truck for our maintenance staff. So this year is a year for vehicles that impact students with the multifunction bus. We also may be purchasing 2 vans that I've been trying to procure for a while, but the 2 years after that, I think there'll be more utility vehicles for the facilities. So that's what I anticipate there. Then transitioning to kind of special articles. This is probably an important area to get feedback from the school committee. There is a request here for multi-year funding for high school HVAC upgrades. So I previously said that we have a subset of our annual capital funding that's used for HVAC, and we can dedicate some of that to the high school, but it's simply not enough. I mean, the scope of the work is so large. So I've looked at the recommendations of Doran Whittier and SMMA, and we do feel there's next year a priority in tackling the domestic hot water heater, so that we are assured that we won't fail to have hot water to support the high school as well as the kitchen, which is a central kitchen of our schools. So if that hot water heater goes down, then it impacts all our buildings really, because that's the supply. And so that's a priority for next year. The other thing that I would propose budgeting for now is to start to do the kind of engineering analysis and design and bid documents and determination of what should we take on after that. And our hypothesis is that the best approach is to tackle the boilers, but there are other, now heat pumps and efficiency considerations to take into account, as well as opportunities with the MSBA Accelerated Repair Program. So the thinking is that we don't make a big move outside of the domestic hot water heater replacement next summer, but we do the engineering and the design analysis, and we think about the accelerated repair program and our approach to future moves, and we start to budget for the years after that. So that's on high school HVAC and the recommendation that I'm making there. Thurston, the request for Thurston heating system is one that appeared last year and is just continuing to be in my 5-year capital request, and that's partly because until we know what the expectations are and what the feedback from the town is about the future of the building, I can't ignore that the pipes in that building are quite old and they are at risk of failure, not all at once, but segments of it are likely to fail at some point in the next few years. And so we just have to be ready for that. If we anticipate that the building will continue to exist in this form for a long period and that it's not going to be a near-term project, we should take on those pipes and replace them. So this is a placeholder to kind of signal that we should budget for that if it doesn't become a building project of a different type. So that's Thurston. Then high school security and communications. I'm sorry I keep talking here, but we're almost at the end. So high school security, this is one I'm not sure I've brought up here before, but we have looked at our phone equipment, and actually Dorn Whittier didn't really study phone equipment as part of their scope, but Tom Carey and I have looked at phone and security equipment, and our phone controllers across the district have been analyzed and reviewed. They're in different states of, health. Like some of them are just past the age of the useful age, and they could fail. And the buildings that I watch most closely are Sheehan and the high school right now, in terms of the controllers. I think the high school phone equipment rises to be the most important to replace because it also is the central controller which forwards calls to the rest of the district. So our plan is that should we get this funding would be to replace that equipment at the high school and also tackle the paging system internal to the school, the PA system, as part of one project. And that strengthens the resilience of the district at large. Now, if Sheehan's controller were to fail, again, partly because we have an annual capital budget in which we roll funds year to year, we always maintain some funds for an unanticipated event or something that we need to quickly tackle. So we would replace the equipment at Sheehan if that were a critical piece. But I think the high school should be the top priority here, and that's why that's a recommendation. That's it. So the last piece after that is just a placeholder to signal that the district is having conversations and seeking input from the community about an SOI, and that there could be a request for funding associated with that SOI within the next 5 years, but it's a placeholder. And so that's the capital request.
Yeah, and so just to add, just for framing for this conversation, right? This is not the approved or recommended capital budget. These are the capital requests. So at this stage in the process, Town Hall is requesting things from all of the Town Hall departments. Certainly we have an opportunity. While I would say that I would love that everything that is on our capital request list gets funded at the level which we are asking, we also are cognizant that it's all part of one big capital pie as it relates to the overall capital budget in the community. But we need to put our chips on the table to be a part of that conversation. And we thought it was important to share that with the committee here.
So this is what we'll take into budget conversations with ourselves and with the town.
Correct.
Anyone have any questions? My only is the Thurston heating system. I feel like that could go any day.
Mike, you don't need heat.
I remember having this conversation a year ago, and Tony said, "What happens if there is an emergency and we have to move the students elsewhere?" And then, I think you put it out to the universe.
I think so. One of the reasons why we haven't tackled it sooner is because it is not an easy project to tackle.
Right.
So the pipe replacement entails opening up walls, and that entails then other questions of like taking on work that could trigger code issues. And so we would have to definitely stage it over multiple summers. That's one piece of it. with that in mind, it just made sense to like pause and be thoughtful about what we discovered in the facilities master plan process. And so here we are today after just having like received that report and having the full scope of what the possible options are for the district. So it so far has been too early to try to tackle it, but I'm signaling here that I've not forgotten about it, because I certainly have not, and I think it is a concern. I would say it will. I'm glad Mike is in the room, because he's hearing me and will hold me. He'll live this more than anyone, and the students will. This is the hard part. But if there is a pipe failure in a section of the building, what we will have to do is close that group of classrooms that are impacted immediately adjacent to it, and there will be a real impact there. But we're able to shift enough because we have newer HVAC units in both of the modulars, so that's reassuring that all of those classrooms are functioning on a completely independent system, as well as the cafeteria, the gyms, so those are independent. It's really the old section of the building that's reliant on the old steam pipes, which now run hot water for their heat source. Those are the classrooms that are the most vulnerable should something occur like that. It could be something much more simple, that a radiator leaks in a classroom and we're able to tackle it in a weekend. And luckily it's not been anything bigger than that in the more recent years. We did make some improvements to reduce risk with the building management system. Like we changed some pieces of it was the pumps. It's been a while. But I believe it was the circulating pumps and then the building management system together. We like looked at the calibration of the system to make sure that we weren't overtaxing it, and we think that has reduced the number of failures, because just even the last 2 years we haven't had as much that has been reported. But I have to hope that that's not just luck, and that's attributed to the system changes that we made.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is that, like, best case scenario, we are 7 years away from a new school, and that doesn't take into account the fact that there will be another fire station project, and we can only ask so much of the taxpayer. And so 7 years, I'm just wondering, we have nothing in for FY 2027. I'm just wondering if we think about phase one.
Well, yeah, we need to do something at Thurston. That's an
yeah.
interesting point.
Yeah, because.
Well, I can reflect on that and think about what
Yeah.
that could be, if there is something that would help reduce risk. And there was
Correct. Something to
small enough
mitigate the
project.
risk, because 7 years is a long time, and that's a best case scenario. And I don't know how realistic that is, given everything that's happened and what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, even like last year, we spent a bunch of money at Sheehan for the electric because we had to, even, you know, same thing. Sheehan would be 7 years, so I like that point. If there's, might not be 2 million, but I don't know if you could do
Right.
I'll
something.
revisit the conversation. I think the hard part, and I will tell you one thing we have done, in an example of this kind of step, but it wasn't so expensive that it warranted a separate capital article, is we've replaced pipes in the basement. You know, if you've taken a tour, and I know we might give tours of Thurston at some point as part of our outreach to the community, but we've replaced sections of pipe that we've been able to access. So if we've had an opportunity and some funding, and we could schedule it with the vendor, and we knew the students weren't going to be out of the building, we've taken on a section and replaced it. The challenge and the reason for the big cost in FY 28 is it just part of this requires a shutdown of the system and a closure of the building when students are not there, and a replacement of pipes that go vertically up from the boiler room under the building to those classrooms in the old section, and that requires breaking walls and really shutting it down. And it's not a small cost project you can pick away at, and it's a hard one to schedule. So that's the hard part.
Ultimately, I defer to you and Tom, because you guys are in the trenches on this, but if there's anything we can do.
I absolutely will
Short
take
term.
into. I think we'll reconvene and kind of think about with Doran Whittier's recent report, what we could, whether we can identify a small project.
So I'll acknowledge two things, right? One is we certainly hear the feedback from the committee on this and can reflect that in our capital ask. I think the second is by the time we actually get to a capital budget and presenting that for town meeting, we will have already had our decision in December about what's our priority project for the SOI, right? And so we know, are we on the bandages and gauze route, or are we on the full-on surgery route as it relates to the heating system at Thurston, right? And so I think that'll be informative by the time we actually have to turn this in from a request into a budget, so.
I just wanted, this is more of a comment than a question. I just wanted to appreciate this thoughtfulness because I feel like this shows a maintenance, a dedication to maintaining our buildings and consistently looking at, all of these projects holistically and not having a deferred maintenance plan. Obviously strategic decisions may be made around Sheehan or Thurston, but overall, when I look at this, I don't see this as a deferred maintenance. I see this as taking care of our buildings, doing preventative maintenance, keeping up with these expenses so that they don't snowball into something much bigger down the line that then we're asking the town to deal with on an emergency basis. So thank you for that, because I think a lot of thought goes into this that isn't necessarily seen, by the town all the time.
I would say we'll talk in October about things that were done in the summer, but we did some things in the summertime too that we can share that can speak to what we've done at Sheehan, for example, in terms of continuing to maintain that building, as well as Thurston. So we'll report on, and that might be interesting as well.
Should we talk about solar in October?
We will.
Yeah,
great.
That too, yes.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah, we'll do we figured there's already enough in this
Fine,
meeting.
fine.
We'll do the
Long
summer
meeting.
facilities update in October.
Long
So,
meeting,
yeah.
in executive session.
Thank you, Lemma, this is great.
Thank you, Lemma.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on the capital request? All right, we are moving into action items. The first action is the vote of the July 10th meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Vote on the August 8 meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. August 22nd meeting minutes. Can I get a motion?
Moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Vote to accept the gift for the Sheehan Playground. Can I get a motion
I move that we accept the gift for the Sheehan Playground
in the amount
in the amount of
of
$35,000.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you again.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a vote to close inactive student activities accounts.
Yeah, so this is something that happens on a periodic basis. So these are accounts that are inactive but have a financial balance. They would be distributed to other student activities upon your vote, and the recommendation they'd be funded, transferring to our all-student general fund or to the field trips and student travel fund as outlined in the memo.
Okay. Can I get a vote to approve to close the inactive student activities accounts and reallocate per the memo?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. And finally, exciting, a memorial scholarship for Sean P. Kane. There is a memo in there, and I think I don't know, Tim, if you want to speak to it, or? you want me to-
No, I think the memo sort of speaks to itself, right? I mean, it's the Sean P. Kane Memorial Scholarship that would be awarded to a student heading to a college or vocational program who's overcome significant personal, academic, or family challenges and who demonstrated determination in the face of adversity and who had athletic commitment and dedication to helping others.
Great, and I think the fund will start with $10,000 and add over time,
Yeah.
so.
With looking at an award of $2,000 per year to one or two students. So,
All right, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Okay. Is there any new business? No. Okay. I think can I get a motion to go into executive session?
Need both of these?
we do.
We
yeah.
do.
God. All right, I'll make a motion to move to executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if it may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the committee, and also to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. We will not be returning to open session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are moving to executive session. Thank you, everybody.
Shooting.